Hello, everybody. Hello, NDC, and welcome back to In People Conferences. It's nice to see folk. You're not on Zoom. Is anybody on mute? Sorry. I'm really, really happy. So this is my first in-person talk since NDC DevOps in March 2020. So hello, everybody. I'm Derek Campbell. I'm the Community Director at Octopus Deploy. Today I'm going to be talking about pipelines, infrastructure as code, and deployments with GitHub Actions and Octopus Deploy. So let's start with the agenda. Let's get past the agenda really quickly. Let's be honest, you're here for the demo. So we're going to talk a little bit about GitHub Actions. Anybody doesn't know about GitHub Actions? Oh, look, so yeah, anyway. We'll talk a little bit about Octopus. We'll talk a little bit. I've added config as code. This is something that's only just been released. Very small demo there as well. Because now with Octopus, you can store all of your configuration for your deployments in code. It's something we've been working on for for more than 2 years. And then why a little bit about GitHub and Octopus? And then let's be honest, we're here for the demo. That's the bit that I'm here for. So let's jump in. And at the end, we will have at least 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A. Okay, so introducing GitHub Actions. There's actually over 13,000. I did check this. It's one of those ones I have to update this every time I do the talk because there's like another 300-400 actions. So there's actually 13,118 GitHub Actions in the marketplace. There's industry standard package formats for .NET, JavaScript, Ruby, Docker, and way more, which gives that seamless, it allows for your community standards in development. One of the benefits here is it's elastic to any scale, fully managed, community-led automation. One of the great things is it's home of the world's code, right? With that, and we include Octopus Deploy. So we actually use GitHub with that. So one of the cool things is it natively integrates with GitHub and Codespaces. And one of the benefits here is GitHub actually has runners in Windows, Linux, Mac OS with lots of different bits. So what is Octopus Deploy? Octopus Deploy has been around since around 2012. That's when I started using it. It helps DevOps teams across the world. There's over 25,000 DevOps teams that use Octopus daily. So there's a lot of deployments happening. And one of the key things is we accelerate reliable, repeatable, and traceable deployments to cloud and on-premises. I'll show you the repeatable bit. What we do there is we use a single deployment process, whether you're in dev, test, etc. It includes over 500 steps that you can use out of the box. You can also create your own. So that's just something to consider. And one of the key things is we integrate with pretty much everything. We, natively with GitHub Actions, TeamCity, Azure DevOps, Jenkins, and way, way more. And one of the cool things with Octopus now with config as code is you can actually store your configuration as code alongside your application code. So what is config as code? It's kind of Ronseal, right? It is what it says on the tin. But config as code allows you to store your deployment process in code using Octopus configuration language. It's also commonly referred to as OCL. We do have a VS Code extension that you can use, but effectively allows you to treat your config as code the same as your application code. So if you're updating your application code or you're updating your deployment process, you can work in the same repository, but you can branch your changes and test them before merging into your mainline branch, which means that you can test and automate your deployments much like you do with your application. So it allows you to review and collaborate on changes with others in your development and your DevOps engineers, allowing you to use branches for testing and then using pull requests for the approval. So I'll show you that a little bit later. But one of the things is when you are testing it, I would recommend cloning it. It is a one-way configuration, and I do have that in today's demo as well. So one of the main benefits is that config as code allows you to track changes to your deployments, right? using the same tools that you're already using. So if you're using VS Code, that search, update, mass objects, that's definitely something that you can do. You can use your text editor of choice to make minor or even major changes. And one of the key things is with config as code, it allows you to work where you work best. So I started out a long, long time ago. I think my hairline probably gives a little bit of an indicator that I've been in IT a wee bit longer than most. I actually started out as a system administrator. Don't hold it against me. It was a long time ago. I'm a reformed DevOps engineer. But the thing is what config as code allows you to do is work where you work best. Whether that's the UI, honestly, and like with other tools, you generally have one or the other. In our tool, effectively, you can make minor updates in VS Code and then jump into the browser and then update the changes that you've already made. But the whole point really is that it allows you to treat your deployments the same as you would treat your application code. So, biggest pattern is keep your Octopus configuration alongside your application code. The main benefit there is you can use PRs, branches, etc. And that's the key thing here, is that pull request is a really great approval. You can use branch-specific variables. One thing is the first release of config as code does not actually contain variables. It is just a deployment process. So I'll give you a demo of that in just a bit. And the key thing is, make sure you use the development tools when you can, but if you also just want to make a quick and dirty change, the UI also works, and it's really wherever you work best. So, how to use it? It is very, very new. It's like 6 weeks old, so you would have to have our latest version, so that's 2022.1. If you're going to pay attention to one thing, it's that, right? It's a one-way process. So if you want to test something, clone your projects. Do not just go ahead and do it, because what's going to happen is you're going to go, oh no, something didn't work, and there's no way back. So with that, when you're testing it, maybe start with a new project. You can convert existing projects or also set something up by default. Again, just test it. I don't want anybody losing their jobs because they made a bad decision. But with that, and the main thing is, just like anything else, validate that it actually works for you, and then roll it across your team. And yes, feedback is welcome. So if you are, who's actually using Octopus just now? Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. It's normally a wee bit more than that, if I'm being honest. So the roadmap is we released this last year in early access. So it's been tested now for the last 6-7 months. We're now live. We released it in the middle of March. And the variables, they'll be a little bit later, probably Q3. And Runbooks, which is a way to do things like emergency and routine and operational tasks, they should be available later in the year. I know that Runbooks is a way for you to effectively, those old bits of paper that used to get passed around and do this and do that? That's what Runbooks, but it also does infrastructure as code as well. So I get asked this a lot, right? Why use them both? The main thing, like, I love Github Actions, it's great. But once you scale past a few projects, it just doesn't work. When you have hundreds of people in your development team, it just doesn't scale. And the thing I like is GitHub, for me, is one of the best tools out there. It's native, it's where your code lives. Why not use your CI server there? And I think a lot of people think that Octopus Deploy is the #1 DevOps automation tool in the world. I'm one of those people. But one of the key things is Octopus does integrate with anywhere. So what I generally find is large organizations very seldom really use the same build server over and over. It's like, Team A will use Jenkins, Team B will use GitHub Actions, Team C, Team City, Azure DevOps, etc. So the good thing is we really don't care what build server, we'll integrate with it. And yeah, obviously you've got some traceability there. And with that, you do have a single pane of glass. With Octopus, yes, you've got your deployments. You also have your infrastructure as code. You have your config as code. You can do your databases. You can do your applications. You can do maintenance tasks. And honestly, we don't really care where you deploy it. We'll deploy it in Azure, GCP, AWS. You got the latest in Kubernetes, go ahead. And that's one of the things is we actually use Octopus Deploy at Octopus Deploy. That's one of the benefits. You don't have to pay yourself a licensing fee. But with that, we actually run all of our Octopus Cloud. We have roughly 4,500 instances of Octopus Cloud, and they're all using Azure Kubernetes service. So we're actually using it to deploy Kubernetes as well. And config as code, I will show you this. It won't be a huge part of today's demo, but really what that does is it allows you to, I've already told you about config as code, and also it's free, right? Octopus is not free. There is a free version, that's just something to be aware of. And then at that point, let's be honest, this is what you want to see. Let's get, there we go. Okay, keep changes. So at this point, let's jump on over. We are actually going to start. So this is Octopet Shop. So Octopet Shop is an application that I use a lot. It's a sample application. It's a multi-tier application that contains a database, a website, a product service, and a shopping cart service. So what we've got here is, oh, that's a bit rubbish. Oh, so what you've got here is we have our GitHub Actions, or it's under the workflow. From here, we have the database, the infrastructure, the product service, the shopping cart service, and there's also even some tests. So this is obviously your GitHub Actions. What I've done is I have went ahead and already created this. So let's jump in and have a look. I did have some problems earlier on, so I am just going to go ahead and run that, and then I'll take you through the actual action. The main thing is I did have some random issues where when I'm actually creating the infrastructure and test, it took a little bit longer than I was planning on. So this is GitHub. I don't think I need to tell you about GitHub, but what you've got is if you come all into the code, you can pop in, and then under the workflow, this is where your GitHub Actions live. We've got a few, but I'm going to just take you through this. And one thing just to be aware is we do have a free tool. Who is using GitHub Actions? Awesome, awesome. So a free tool that you probably want to be aware of is we have a GitHub Actions generator. So if you go to GitHub Actions workflow generator.octopus.com, it's also on our website, you can actually generate all of your YAML in a single. So what you do is you input your Git repository link here, and then from here you do have a range. So you've got Maven, Node, PHP, .NET Core, Ruby, Go, Python. I always forget the Gradle. I always forget the elephant. That's something ironic there. They always talk about how elephants don't forget things. So if you do this, what you can do is, if this had been a Maven repository, you can basically just click on the correct repository. If you just select Go, it should actually look at your code, find out what it is, and give you the one. I'm not going to take that risk. I'm going to specify that it's .NET Core. Presenting stuff, really thirsty work, eh? Okay, so as you can see on screen, you've got this. It literally creates all of your workflow for you. It will create, so what you've got is, if you have a quick look, you can see there that YAML is specifying that it's running on Ubuntu. You're checking out the code. You're then, from here, you're determining the version. You're installing dependencies. You're doing your .NET Restore. You're publishing it from here. And this is one of the things, I love this tool because it means I don't have to write YAML. YAML. Right, who actually likes writing YAML? Oh, right, okay. You spend a lot of time alone, eh? No, I love YAML. I do love it. It's incredibly frustrating to write, though. It's also because I'm crap at writing it right. Like, let's be fair. So that's definitely not my. It's definitely not that. But the thing I loved here is it saves me having to do that. And the good thing is to be honest, what I find is once you have a .NET or a .NET Core or a Java, this all starts to look a little bit samey. The good thing is you can, what I love about YAML is how reusable it is. You can bang your head off something for 3 days and eventually, yeah, it's great, but I can then use it for the next 12 months with some maybe minor updates. I love this. So GitHub Actions workflow gen. We really should have a short URL for that. If you Google it, it'll come up. But with that, obviously, I've went ahead. If we pop in, what we'll see here is this is our workflow. So again, we're checking it out. Kind of looks a lot like the code from the GitHub Action workflow generator .octopus.com. So here, what we're doing is we're just specifying the version. We're going to do this. I'm a bit old school. Some things I like in separate folders. So we're just creating this so that one of my things with build, I don't know why, sometimes you build something. Where did the artifacts go? They just, I don't know about you, but that's one of my pains is actually write the output folder. Where did it go? But anyway, from here, I like nice clean directories. And then the next few bits, we're just publishing it. It's just a .NET one, so we're just publishing each different solution. And then from there, we're actually using Octopack. So if you want to use this with Octopus, we actually have a plugin that you can install. I think there's 3 or 4 actions. That's one of the benefits of, hey, I've got internet, I can probably tell you. So from here, and this is one of the things that I have actually been, I do look at this number, and it's been updated since my last update. So this is where you would see it. So if you come in, and then if you select, say, there are some which, so the top 3 there, so your runbook, that's a lot of run. If you say that really fast, it sounds like you're saying run rabbit, run, run. So what you've got is you push the package really from here and then create the release. The other 2, they're not ours. I have never tested them. I'm sure they work just beautifully, but you'll see the top 3 are by Octopus Deploy. But yeah, and we're using them all here. So what you can do is the only one I'm not actually using here is the runbook. I'm using Octopus, and I'm actually built that into my deployment process. I will give you that in a wee moment. So at this point, we've built it, we've restored it, we've ran our tests, we're then pushing the packages. So we're going to push 4 packages. We're going to create the database, the product service, the web, the product service, the shopping cart service, and the website. So at this point, then we've specified an API key, some packages to grab, and then with that, I'm then just basically creating a release using, this is actually just the Octopus CLI command. So from here, I've specified that, and then off I went. So if I've done this right and waited long enough, what I should see is we have, so what we have on screen, this is Octopus Deploy. Down the left-hand side is your projects. Your projects tend to be things that you ship together. If you're using monolith deployments, we support those. I'm sorry. But what you'll do is you'll go in and you'll see your 100 steps, and you'll keep scrolling. And yeah, we do monolith, right? If you also do microservices, yes, we do that as well. You're going to see a lot more projects down that left-hand side, but with that, you can actually use project coordination and all that sort of good stuff. But anyway, what we've got now is we've got the Octo Pet Shop project. Let's jump in. So let's jump in and have a look at the deployment process. So this is what it looks like. So first thing I do is I'm creating the infrastructure for test. So what this will actually do is this is actually going to run a runbook. So if we have a look, we should see, so as part of step 1, it creates the infrastructure, which does take about 7 to 8 minutes. Sometimes it takes 35 minutes. I'm really, really hoping it's not 35 minutes today. But what we're doing here is I do have infrastructure for test. I like this approach because it also means that test is only ever online for as long as you need it. You can reduce your testing cost by basically 5%, because you don't have to have a VM on at all times anymore. It's not 2012. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going to jump through the deployment process. run through a health check. The main reason I'm doing the health check is the infrastructure didn't exist at the beginning of the release, so I'm just doing a fresh health check just to make sure that the infrastructure is there and it's being deployed to. The next few steps are very similar. We've got some manual interventions. We're deploying the 3 Azure web apps. And then lastly, you'll see here that we're deploying the database. So the database is being deployed. So all of this is being deployed to Azure. So we're using Azure web apps with Azure SQL. Everything here is platform as a service because platform as a service is much easier to provision. So at this point, I also print out the URL because I am super lazy. It's probably why I'm a DevOps engineer. I don't like doing that. You know, once you've done it 4 times, like, cool, let's maybe automate that and move on. But at that point, at the end, we've got a manual intervention, which means we should be able to check that the fix that we've done has been pushed to test. So at this point, we can test it. So let's go to the overview. Oh, risky. Let's see. Please. Yes. Right. So this is now actually deployed. The main issue I've had recently is actually the infrastructure. It's been basically creating infrastructure has been just a little slow recently on Azure. This almost didn't get included earlier on because it took 37 minutes. So at this point, I'm creating the resource group. I've actually deploying the Azure SQL Server. I'm deploying the empty database. I've created the app service plan. I've created this. If we jump in, we do have. I love Runbooks. The main reason, I think it's because I do come from an operations background and I remember those bits of paper. You would land in, you've got the memo. David Smith is joining the company. Here is your 300 tasks. Now you can just do it in a single runbook. So at this point, you'll see here. So all I've got is, this is just a collection of ARM templates, a little bit of Azure CLI, some Azure PowerShell. I try and mix it up, you know, why do it one way when I can do it 17 different ways? But what you've got here is, I am creating the resource group. Also, this is a publicly accessible instance of Octopus. So if you are so excited about Octopus today that you just have to see this, then you can log on to webinar.octopus.app and with guest authentication and have a little bit of a play around. So at this point, there's some ARM templates that we're doing. Okay, so at this point, let's just make sure, I just want to make sure there is an orange eye. So test is actually going to tear everything down. So at this point, we've created the infrastructure, we've deployed the web app, the database. So at this point, I'm printing out the URL. And then hopefully we have a bunch of pets. How many things do I have to sacrifice to the demo gods? So obviously this is just it's going to an Azure web app. So obviously we have just deployed this. So there we go. That made me sweat a little bit. It made me laugh though, you know, like $100 for a dog. Anybody bought a puppy recently? I had to get a bank loan the last time I thought about buying a dog. So at this point, you've deployed the infrastructure. You've deployed the everything here. So at this point, you'll notice here, there is a manual intervention step. The main reason I have the manual intervention is just to verify that, say the fix that I push to test, I can select assign to me, and then at this point, it's going to go ahead and tear everything down. I like this approach because hey, you can host on Azure, AWS, etc., but it's expensive, right? So yeah. So at this point, what we're going to see is we come on over, we are going to see that production is waiting for that push. So I'm going to, from here, we've done the health check, we're just making sure the infrastructure's online. We're going to assign it to me, and then at this point, it's going to go ahead and just going to deploy everything to production. Okay, so one of the cool things here, it's going to go ahead, it's going to grab the packages, it's going to deploy everything like it did to test, and we're going to test it. But at this point, what I actually want to do is I want to come over and I want to set up config as code. So to do this, I'm going to give you a little demo here of this. So how this basically works is you can set up, get authentication. So if you want, you can set up username, password, I'm using, with this, I'm using a service account just to ensure that things are a little bit better. But no smoke and mirrors. As you can see, we've got Octopus Deploy community, and then there it is. Give me the URL. Again, this is a one-way. You only ever do this because I'll have to delete this demo and then do it all again. So just be careful. There we go. Oh. There we go. So we've got that. We're specifying the default branch, which is the main line, specifying the service account. And then at this point, just down here, just one thing just to be aware of. With the storage directory, this is in the .octopus folder. So if we have a quick look, what we should see is there is no .octopus folder. That's because there's no version control or configuration as code. And then from there, what we're going to do is come back. I'm just going to use the service account. I'm just going to do the files. We are telling everybody our pattern that we're using is store your configuration alongside the application. We do also have people who want per space, who want to, say for instance, you had a demo, like you had a space in Octopus, you can actually just every deployment process into different folders. It's not how we recommend it, but it does definitely get it out of the database. So at this point, I'm just going to use the standard. I'm going to test, because you should always test, right? And then good. So at this point, I'm going to select commit. You've got your initial one, so initial commit. There we go. It's going ahead. And then look, there you go. As you can see, it's enabled. You come back to the overview. And then, one second, into the process. And then at the top there is our branch switcher. So as we can do, so if I say, for instance, I came in, infrastructure for test. So what I could do is, I'm just going to change the name of this to, Hello, NDC London. So just before we do that, let's come on back to the repository. If we refresh that, there we go. You can see there that there we go. We've got our, I really should have brought a mouse. What we've got is our deployment process. So this is where everything is. Later on in the year, we'll have variables. Variables is a way for you to change different things. I'll look at that later on. And as you can see on screen, we have step one. We're going to create the infrastructure for test. We're going to do the health check. We're deploying the Azure Web App. And one thing that I really like is we do now have, so this is great. If I wanted to, I could change this. Actually, let's see. This is all good. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to, hello NDC London. I'm going to commit this to a new branch. I'm going to call hello London, hello NDC London. And then, well, why is it right? So I'm just going to call NDC London talk. There we go. So if we select commit, what we should see is we come back to GitHub. On this, let's so this actually shouldn't update. There we go. So if we switch back to NDC London, there you go. So from there, the benefit here is you're able to test everything before you actually push it all the way through. I don't know about you, but when I used to make changes, it used to be quite frustrating because you would have to make so many changes. It was hard to track. It was hard to see. You couldn't see it in code. It was in a different field. Whereas now, everything's in a single file. So at this point, what you can do is, as you can see, we've got this. Let's do a pull request. Hey. So there we go. We're going, compare this. Hey. I think that's some, yes, that's why. There we go. Yeah, we go. There we go. So we've got that. Give it a second. That's not it. There we go. And so if we do this, we make sure we're doing this into the main branch, merge it, confirm the merge. I am just going to delete this branch, and if we come back over, what we should see is main. There you go. So it's been merged, the change has now been merged back into the main line. So that's that. So you can do that there in Octopus. You can do that. So at this point as well, if you did want to, what you can do is just use code spaces. I love this. I don't ever have to install VS Code ever again. So at this point, you can press your dot, code spaces comes up. One thing just to be aware of is you can see the little octopus icon down the left-hand side. There is the basics of your steps. So actually, let's have a look. Oh, 1 second. Octopus. There's your deployment process there. So one of the benefits here is it's a lot nicer to look at. Obviously, it's hard to see there. I would recommend using code spaces, or there is also the extension. So if you use VS Code, you can just grab it from the marketplace. We are working on some more as well. So like JetBrains Rider, etc. That should all be out in the next couple of months as well. So yeah. So effectively, that's config as code. I love it. It just means that if I just want to do something really quick, then I can. But also, if you're fine in the UI, I would recommend staying in the UI, right? That's a perfectly valid place to be. Okay, so yeah, so at this point, let's just see, come back, deployment to production was happening. I have also kicked off another deployment whilst doing the PR as well. So that's something there, off we go, and it's doing everything again. So at this point, we went through what is GitHub Actions, how to use them. We have configured it. We've deployed all the infrastructure using Runbooks. I've showed you off config as code, how to make changes using VS Code, etc. So yeah, at this point, do we have any questions? Cool. Obviously, I'm downstairs. I'll be outside the Octopus stand. But just so you're aware, we are giving away an Oculus Quest today, tomorrow, and then we've got a really cool octopus sculpture. I actually have one in my office. It's the main reason I got it. It's like this size, and it's cool. I call mine Ollie the Octopus. I am the community director. We do generate a lot of YouTube content. We're just trying to help people out in the community. And I've been Derek Campbell, and thank you so much for attending my talk, and I hope you learned something cool today.